Well, hello and welcome. I'm Miss Heard with Miss Heard Song Lyrics Podcast. We are in Season 5, Episode 214, doing our first ever Bread Miss Heard Song Lyric. The Miss Heard Song Lyric is, Baby, I'ma want you. And then the correct lyrics is, Baby, I'ma want you. It's pretty close. I mean, a worn shoe or warm shoe, either one works versus want you. Let's talk about Bread. I love this group. There's a lot of hits, a lot of rabbit holes. So let's just begin. So, Baby, I'ma Want You is the name of the song we're talking about today. It's a song by American soft rock band Bread. And the single was released back in October of 1971. So, gosh, this month, 52 years ago, and became the title track for the album of the same name, also called Baby I'ma Want You, released in January of 1972. It was one of Bread's highest charting singles in both the United States and in the United Kingdom, or UK. It reached number 3 in the US on the Billboard Hot 100 chart in November of 1971. The third of Bread's 4 top hits, Make It With You, number 1 in 1970. Make it with you, I really think that we can make it through. I love that. And then If, number 4 earlier in 1971, and Everything I Own from the same album, number 5 in 1972. So a lot of great singles in the top 10 from just this album alone. And then Baby I'ma Want You reached the top of the easy listening chart and rose to number 14 on the UK singles chart back in February of 1972. Billboard actually called it a powerful ballad performance, which I would agree. And then Cashbox also called it a quote-unquote soft ballad that returns Bread to their original sound. It was certified as a gold record by the RIAA. As with virtually all the band's well-known recordings, the song was both written and produced by the band's lead vocalist, David Gates. Okay, so who is Bread? Other than, it's another name for a staple of a lot of people's diets, right? Bread was an American soft rock band from Los Angeles, California. They had 13 songs chart on the Billboard Hot 100 between 1970 and 1977. That was their sweet spot. It was led by David Gates. He did the vocals, bass guitar, keyboards, violin, viola, and percussion. So one of the beginning folks that started it in 1968 on. Then there's a Jimmy Griffin. He did vocals, guitar, keyboards, percussion, also started in 1968. A Rob Royer, bass guitar, flute, keyboards, percussion, recorder, backing vocals. A Mike Botts with drums, percussion came in 1969. And then Larry Knechtel, I think that's how you say his name, keyboards, bass guitar, harmonica came on in 1971. I did a little research on what his original name is actually Lawrence William Knechtel. He was born on August 4th, 1940, and then died on August 20th, 2009. He was an American keyboard player and bassist, not only for Bread, but he was also a member of the most famous grouping of session musicians called the Wrecking Crew. And the Wrecking Crew was a collection of LA-based session musicians who worked with such renowned artists such as, let me just put the roster down, Simon and Garfunkel, Beach Boys, the Mamas and the Papas, the Monkees, the Partridge Family, Billy Joel, the Doors, the Byrds, Jerry Garcia, and Elvis Presley, and the list goes on. So it was interesting that they added him to their mix because he also came with some pedigree. And on the first album, session musicians are Ron Edgar played drums and Jim Gordon played drums, percussion, and piano. But since then, of course, they added Mike Botts and so on. And like I said, Mike Botts became their permanent drummer when he joined in the summer of 1969, and Larry Knechtel replaced Royer in 1971 playing keyboards, bass guitar, and harmonica. Now, how did they start? So David Gates is from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and apparently he released a song way back in the late 1950s entitled Joe Baby Lovin' at Night. He, being David Gates, knew a Leon Russell, and both played in bar bands around the Tulsa area at that time, and both headed for California to check out the music scene and probably say, hey, what can I do there? Before forming Bread, David Gates had worked with Royer's previous band, The Pleasure Fair, who recorded one album for the UNI Records label with Gates producing and arranging. Royer then introduced Gates to his songwriter partner, here comes, Griffin, and the trio joined in 1968 and signed with Elektra Records in January of 1969. Gates later explained how they came up with their band name, Bread. Quote unquote, a bread truck came along right at the time we were trying to think of a name. We had been saying, how about Bush? Which is funny because then there is eventually a band in the 90s with Gavin Rossdale, ex of singers from No Doubt. So they didn't go with Bush, obviously, but they were like, well, there was a bread truck. How about Bush, maybe telephone pole? Ah, bread truck, bread. It began with a B, like the Beatles and Bee Gees. Bread also had a kind of universal appeal. It could be taken a number of ways. Of course, for the first year, people called us the Breads. That's funny. And then the group's first single, Dismal Day, was released back in June of 1969, but did not chart. And their debut album, Bread, was released in September of 1969 and peaked at number 127 on the Billboard 200. Hey, it broke the 200, so I'll give them some cred there. Then the songwriting on the album was split evenly between Gates and the team of Griffin Royer. Session musicians Jim Gordon and Ron Edgar accompanied the band on drums for that album. Then on July 25th, 1969, Bread appeared in concert for the first time with Gordon on the drums at the Aquarius Theater back in Hollywood, opening for the Flying Burrito Brothers. There you go. And when Gordon's schedule conflicted and he proved unable for future outings, they're like, yeah, man, we got to find someone that can be a permanent drummer. That's when they brought in Mike Botts, who became their permanent drummer. So just a little history on Botts. He had previously worked with Gates with the Botts group called the Travelers 3 as a producer. He appeared on their second album, On the Waters, released in July 1970, peaked at number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100, or the Billboard 200. This time, their efforts quickly established Bread as a major act in the Billboard Hot 100 number one hit, Making It With You in 1970. Make It With You would be Bread's only number one on the Hot 100. That's good to know. I did not realize that. And then for their next single, Bread released a re-recorded version of It Don't Matter to Me. It was a Gates song from their first album, okay? This single was a hit as well, reaching number 10, and Bread began touring and recording their third album titled Manna, which I love that name, Manna, which also bread, means bread, March of 1971, which peaked at number 21 and included Let Your Love Go. Let Your Love Go. I didn't realize that was Bread. My God, I need to get the greatest hits, which preceded the album's release and made number 28 and the top 5 single, If. As with the first album, songwriting credits were split evenly between Gates and Griffin Royer, but then, things kind of change. Royer, after conflicts with other members of the band, left the group in the summer of 1971 after 3 albums, although he would continue to write with Griffin on the side. He was replaced by Larry Knechtel, which I just explained came from the Wrecking Crew. And he also, like I said, because of that Wrecking Crew, worked with a lot of big acts like Simon Garfunkel, Beach Boys, and so on. Then in January of 1972, Bread released Baby I'ma Want You, the song we're talking about today, the misheard, and it's their most successful album, peaking at number 3 on the Billboard 200. So the album was also called Baby I'ma Want You, and then the single from it was Baby I'ma Want You. And as I said, the title song was established as a hit in late 1971, before the album was even released, also hitting number 3. Follow-up singles, Everything I Own, Diary, also went to top 20. Then their next album, called The Guitar Man, was released 10 months later and went to number 18. The album produced 3 top 20 singles, The Guitar Man at number 11, Sweet Surrender at number 15, and Aubrey at number 15, with the first 2 going to number 1 on Billboard's adult contemporary chart. They are on fire. But as anything goes, the band starts to have some rumblings and they split up. So by 1973, the concert recording and touring started to take its toll on the band. And even despite all their success, personal relationships began to show strain, especially between Gates and Griffin, because remember, they're the songwriting team that's part of it. The other individual left. At 11 of Bread's charting singles between 1970 and 1973 had been written and sung by Gates, okay? Elektra Records had selected Gates' song for the A-sides of singles, while Griffin felt that the single should have been split between the 2 of them. There was also dissatisfaction with the songs planned for the 6th album. After their equipment and instruments were destroyed in a truck accident prior to a scheduled concert at the Salt Palace in Salt Lake City in June of 1973, Bread decided to disband. So that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. They all went to their solo careers. So in 1978, Gates enjoyed some success as a solo artist. I didn't know this, with his hit single, The Goodbye Girl, number 15 on the charts from the movie The Goodbye Girl, and Took the Last Train, number 30. That's a pretty song, that Goodbye Girl. He then did continue to tour with Botts, their drummer, and Knechtel as David Gates and Bread. Okay, so the Bread's name is still in there, making appearances, including, get this, a guest shot on the Hardy Boys Mysteries, which aired back in November 1970. I love watching Hardy Boys because I loved, there's Parker Stevens, but I love Sean Cassidy. I know. Those of you that know what I'm talking about, I'll just leave it at that. And those of you, those youngins that don't, look up the Hardy Boys mystery and look up Sean Cassidy. Okay, so the group's 1978 touring lineup once again included Dean Parks for their June tour of the UK and Europe. By their fall dates, back in the US, Parks had left, oh my gosh, and stage lineup had expanded to include a Warren Ham, Bill Ham guitars, and David Miner in bass. So a lot of coming in and going out with the bandmates. This led, of course, to a legal dispute with Griffin over the use of the band's name Bread, which Griffin was co-owner. So did you know in this dispute, Griffin again complained that Gates' songs were given preference as singles over his. The resulting litigation, which resulted in the Bread name being retired altogether by late 1978, was not settled until 1984. So that's why they couldn't use the Bread name. So after leaving Bread in 1971, Royer, remember he was part of the Griffin duo of writing songs, stuck mostly to songwriting and still teaming up with Griffin on occasion. As with Griffin, he eventually kicked his drug problems, yikes, and his success was mostly in writing for artists in the country music genre field in the 1980s and 1990s. Another did you know, in 1994, Royer, Griffin, and Necto reunited under the name Toast. Get it? Because they couldn't use Bread because of all the legal disputes. So now we're Toast. Necto had also contributed to continue to be an in-demand session player. Because remember, he was part of that famous Wrecking Crew, backing up such artists as Elvis Costello. And then in 1990, Griffin founded the country music supergroup called Black Tie with Billy Swan and former Eagles member Randy Meisner. I did not know that. After this entity broke up, he recorded 2 albums as a member of another country music group, the Remingtons. I remember the Remingtons. So the sad part, the deaths. In 2005, actually both Griffin and Botts died from cancer at the age of 61. That's really ironic. And then in August of 2009, Necto died of a heart attack at the age of 69, leaving the lone members of Gates and Royer as the only surviving members of Bread, now Toast, I guess. Royer continues to be involved in music, initially working out from his Nash film studio in Tennessee before relocating to the Virgin Islands in 2013. And then ironically, Gates, the founding member since 1968, he actually has his retirement home in a state in the United States above mine. It's in the Pacific Northwest, we call it. It's in Washington State with his wife, Jo Rita. And in 2010, Royer released a Jimmy Griffin tribute album because of songs written by himself and Griffin to give Griffin his due. So lots that I unpacked. Amazing. I'm now going to go download and buy the best of Bread because I forgot of all the beautiful songs that they created and sang. And just a reminder that it's Baby, I'm a Want Shoe, not Baby, I'm a Worn Shoe. But you know what? A worn shoe tells so much, just like a picture with 1,000 words. See what I did there? If you have any great suggestions like this misheard song lyric, just send it to any of our social media sites. You can instant message me at Insta, X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, that's what I love, or just send me an old-fashioned email at misheard, that's MISSHEARD songs @gmail.com. Till then, keep singing those songs wrong. Bye!